Today we're going to be going through the top 5 places for you to visit when you're in Colombia. Now, before we start, this is my list of 5 places. You might not like them as much as I do, but for me, this is the top 5 must-see places when you visit in Colombia. Now, our 5th place is Silento. Silento is a small town. It's quite touristy now, but it's a small town and it's got a good climate. I like the climate. It's not too hot. It's quite wet, it's damp. It reminds me of back home, back in the UK. So for me, going there, it was quite nice. I'd just come from Tatacoa Desert, so I'd gone from 32-degree heat to maybe around 20 degrees with some rain, and it was a lot nicer. It was nice and cool at night, and I could sleep. Now, other than that, the town itself doesn't have much to do within the town. It's got a few nice restaurants, but the main thing to do in Silento is the coffee tours, as it's in the coffee region, and Colombia has some of the best coffee in the world. A lot of their coffee is shipped out because it's so good, and then they keep the lowest standard coffee to drink within the country itself. Now, the coffee tour I went on was Finca El Acaso, which was a really good tour. I enjoyed it. The woman spoke really good English and was able to explain the whole procedure of how to grow coffee from start to finish. We got to plant coffee, we got to pick coffee, not coffee, but the coffee beans. And we also got to have different tasting sessions of coffee and flavourings, and it was just really good. It was a nice day out, and for the price, you got 2 to 3 hours for, I think it was around £20. So it was a good day out. Silento is also known for Valle del Cocora, which is one of the best hiking spots in the area and is home to one of the most famous trees in Colombia, the wax palm, which you can only see in Valle del Cocora, and is the tallest tree in all of Colombia. Now, there's 2 hikes at Valle del Cocora. There's a 5-hour hike and an hour hike. I done the hour one just because it was really foggy, so I didn't really see the point in going on a long one, as I wouldn't really be able to see much. But if you go on a clear day, it is definitely worth doing the longer one, as the views will probably be remarkable. Now, on to the 4th place. This was a place I nearly didn't go to. It was never in my original plans, and I only went because I met people whilst I was in Cali at my hostel at La Palmera who were going there, and I decided to go with them, although I went on a different day to them because I just weren't ready to go when they were going. And that is the Pacific Coast. Now, you can get there from Cali by taking a bus about an hour to one of the coastal towns, and then from there you get a boat out. And this is where, if you go in the right season, you can see whale watching, and the whale watching was amazing. We got to see whales jumping out of the water, which apparently is the baby whales. The baby whales are apparently more playful and tend to jump out of the water more than the adults. And if you do go, I'd advise doing a whale watching straight from the port, because it just makes sense. Because otherwise, you'll have to get a motor taxi to your hostel, which will take about 15-20 minutes, and then to go whale watching, you'll have to get one back, and then again, get another one back to your hostel once whale watching's done. Now, once you're at your hostel, there are a few things to do, but the main reason people go to the Pacific Coast is to switch off. The internet reception there is not the greatest. You'll have Wi-Fi at your hostel, possibly, but it might not be the best, and phone reception is not going to be great. So people go to switch off and get away from just people, the big cities, and just being in contact with people. Now, the beaches are nice and the water is warm, but it's not as nice as the Caribbean coast. The water isn't as blue, it's not as warm, but it is still nice to just take a dip in the Pacific. There are 2 tours that you can do whilst you're at the Pacific Coast. The first one, you can take a tour of the national park and go and tour all the waterfalls within there. There are a handful of waterfalls and the tour looked really good, but I just didn't have the money to go, although I wish I did, because you can do some cliff jumping from some pretty high waterfalls. It would have been amazing. And then the next one that I also didn't get to do because I didn't have enough people to go with, as you needed a certain number for the tour, was to go and see bioluminescent plankton, which I think is there all year round and just seems like an amazing experience to go and swim at night with the bioluminescent plankton. Now, you can do this in different places around the world, but just because you're there and it's one of the things to do, you should definitely give it a go. This is 3rd on the list, but it easily could have been 2nd or 1st, and that is Medellin. Now, Medellin is by far the best city in all of Colombia, easily. And although Medellin is the best city in Colombia, it is not very expensive to visit. For example, the northern cities on the coast are more expensive than Medellin, and Bogota, with it being the capital, is also more expensive than Medellin. Now Medellin's not the cheapest city, but it's probably around the mid, maybe upper mid. The amounts of things to do in Medellin are endless, and to get to them, they have one of the best transport systems in the whole of Colombia. To start with, they have a metro system, which I believe is the only one in the entirety of the country. I do think Bogota is getting one developed, but Medellin having a metro just makes it so much easier to get around. Other than that, it's also got buses to get from place to place, and it's also got a metro cable which can get you up to the mountains very easily. Oh, and in the mountains they also have escalators instead of stairs, just to help with that public transport issue a little bit more, so you don't have to walk everywhere. Although the escalators weren't put in for tourists, they were put in for the locals so that they didn't have to walk up and down the hill to get to work every day. So it's just to make their lives a little bit easier. Now, onto the thing to do. You can go and visit Comuna 13, which used to be the most deadly neighborhood in the entire world, and you can see videos on this from when it used to be in conflict. Now, luckily, the conflict in Colombia is pretty much non-existent now. You may hear stories in some parts where there is a bit of trouble, but mostly in the main cities you're not going to get any trouble whatsoever, apart from maybe the odd robbery. Now, if you do visit Comuna 13, they do have free walking tours. Of course, at the end you're expected to tip, because that's how they make a living, but you don't necessarily need to go on a tour. You can just go there and have a look yourself. Comuna 13 is full of street art. It's also full of performers and other vendors that are trying to sell stuff. And all in all, it's a lively, bustling community now. And we also went off the beaten path and went down into some of the other communas that weren't so touristy. And although we got a few odd looks from locals, no one bothered us, no one gave us any trouble, and a few people spoke to us. Another free thing you can do whilst visiting Medellin is visit the botanical gardens. Now, the botanical gardens is a mini ecosystem within the city of Medellin. It has many species of trees and wildlife. This is a great day out if you just want to relax, maybe have a picnic, and just save some money on things to do. One of my favourite things to do whilst I was in Medellin was to go watch a football game. Now, coming from Europe, which has some of the best football clubs in the world, we still know that South America has some crazy football teams and some crazy atmospheres. So to experience that firsthand was amazing. And although the standard of football is nowhere near the quality in Europe, and the atmospheres might not be as loud, but the atmospheres don't stop. The fans didn't stop singing for 90 minutes. They were just going and going and going. It was crazy. They were absolutely crazy, but it was an amazing experience. And for only $10 or about £8, you can go and see a football game, which is just crazy because in Europe it would cost you about 5 times that to go and watch a football game. Now, Medellin also has great nightlife, although I didn't go out in Medellin, but a lot of people do go there to party, and it has some of the best food in the country. With it being such a touristy hotspot, it has all kinds of food catering to everyone, and more importantly, the food is really cheap. I got this for around 13,500 pesos, which at the time I think was about £3.50, maybe even cheaper. It's incredible how much food you can get for your money. And finally, Medellin is in a really good location, and you can do several day trips from there. The first one being Guatapé, which is a stunning dam town, and the history of it is very unique. The current town of Guatapé now sits higher than it used to, as the old town sits under the lake itself. A couple of decades ago, the government decided to flood the area to make a dam so that they could power the country with hydroelectric power. And if you go at the right time of the year, when the water level is a little bit lower, you can actually see the church steeple sticking out of the water as proof that the old town still sits beneath. You can also take a day tour to La Casa en el Aire, but we'll come on to that later. Before we get on to the final two, I just want to remind you, if you want to support the channel, you can go over to the website where you can buy some organic, eco-friendly clothing, and it has Keep Exploring on, which is the mantra that I've been trying to share with you. So head over, check out the stuff, and let's carry on with the video. Now, in second place is somewhere you've seen recently in one of my videos, and that's Rona National Park. Now, this is easily one of the best, if not the best, national park in all of South America. It sits right on the coast of the Caribbean, and has some amazing scenery. The national park itself is home to a diverse ecosystem with an abundance of wildlife. The hike through Rona National Park's jungle is an amazing walk. Along with the views of the beach and the amazing Caribbean coastline, you also have the opportunity to see monkeys. We were lucky enough when we were there to see monkeys with babies on the back just climbing through the trees, which was a really special experience. Knowing that these monkeys are in the wild, not in a zoo, they get to climb freely wherever they want through the entire park. But be careful, because the park is also home to cougars and caiman. Now, once you get to the beaches, they are amazing. They're white sands, clean, and the water is a nice temperature to swim in. Although the waters can be a little bit rough, and that's why a lot of the beaches you aren't allowed to swim in, because a lot of people die swimming in them with the current being so strong. There are beaches like San Juan where you can go and take a dip. Now, once you're finished with your day in Rona, the actual area around Rona has some of the best hostels in all of Colombia. I stayed at the Journey Hostel, which was amazing. It had a pool overlooking the mountain range and the jungles, and it only cost 55,000 pesos a night for a dorm. But if you ask for a hammock, you can pay 35,000 a night. So you're saving yourself 20,000, and 35,000 is only around £6 per night, and you get views like this. Finally, onto my best place in all of Colombia, and that is La Casa en el Aire. Now, La Casa en el Aire is top of the list just because of how unique it is, and it is one of the best day trips that you can do. You can also stay there as it is a hostel, but for me, I just took a day trip from Medellin to La Casa en el Aire, and they pick you up by coach and they take you home. So everything is done for you. There is nothing to worry about. Now, this hostel sits on the side of a mountain, and to get into it, you have to take a zip line, which is just cool in itself. I've never been to a hostel before where the way in was a zip line, and that fits in with the theme of the hostel. The hostel is an adventure hostel, and when you're there, you won't be short of adventurous things to do. There are a number of things to do there. You can do a Tarzan swing, which was so much fun. I've done it twice. You have rock climbing, where you can climb on the side of the mountain. You have a big net that you can just chill and relax in. And then they have hammocks that sit on the zip line overhanging a drop below, where you've got views of nothing but mountains. And all of that for quite an affordable price. I think my entire day there, including transport and all the activities, cost me maybe between 150 and 200,000 pesos, which is around 30 to 40 pounds. Now, if you want to stay the night, I would probably budget between 200 and 300,000, just as you'll have to pay to sleep, and also you might do a few more activities. And you've got to make sure you take your own food, as they don't have food on site because it's on the side of a mountain. So make sure you prepare for that. And just a few more reasons why it makes the top of the list is because it has a lot of dogs. I think it had about 7 dogs, which they said were all rescues. And with it being high in the mountains, you don't have to worry about any mosquitoes or bugs biting you because the altitude is too high. But it's not cold. It is still warm there, which is quite nice. That's it. That's my list of top 5 places to visit in Colombia. I hope you enjoyed the list. I hope you get to visit these places when you go to Colombia. And if you've been to these places, comment below. Smash that like button, and as always, subscribe if you aren't already. And until the next one, keep exploring.